Hello and welcome back to the Everything F1 podcast. My name is Sean, and joining me for what I'm sure will not be at all a controversial discussion about the Spanish Grand Prix are James. Good evening, James. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
I am good. I'm looking forward to this one. And Coops, how are you?
Hello, I'm all right. How are you?
I am good. And anybody watching live on YouTube, firstly, thank you very much. If you want to get involved with us and share your own opinions, which I'm sure many of you have many of, join us on YouTube. Hit subscribe over there. Hit the bell icon. You'll get notified whenever we go live, and you can join us on our live podcast and get involved. Before we get into it, we are Everything F1. You can find us on all socials at Join EF1 on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads, or at EF1 Official on TikTok. You'll also check out our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles. And as I mentioned before, we are into the thick of the summer motorsport season, and we will have updates, news, articles, and opinion pieces for many, many different forms of motorsport up there. So, whatever your motorsport series of choice is, we have somebody covering it for you up there. You get all of your news and info up there. You can also check out our fantastic sponsors, theraceworks.com, for all of your F1 and motorsport merch. Use code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site wide. And as I mentioned, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll find us Everything F1, all one word, over on YouTube. And when we hit 1,000 subscribers, when we hit 500 subscribers and 1,000 subscribers, we'll be giving away a Lego F1 Speed Champions kit of your choice. So head over, hit subscribe, and enter that competition to win some Lego. Now then, there is only one possible place that we could start this episode, gents, and it is, of course, with Haas. No, I'm absolutely kidding. They weren't even in the race, so that is
Nice.
Haas covered off. We'll start with Alpine, and there we go. We've covered Alpine. Now we'll get into the main event, which was, of course, Max Verstappen. Um, if you're watching live or if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that there's no questions whatsoever of whose side I am going to take in this debate. You can see my number 63 here on my jersey, but Coops, I'll come to you first. Do you want to give us a background into how all of this happened in case for some reason somebody forgot the most interesting part of the Grand Prix?
Okay, so this was all started by an Italian and a Mercedes. So the Mercedes power unit for the second weekend in a row went and sent Antonelli into the gravel. Where the car switched off, they needed to bring a tractor onto the track. And after Jules Bianchi and a couple of wee scares after, full safety car comes out when that happens, and everybody dived into the pits. Unfortunately for Max Verstappen, he had one set of new tyres left, which were the hards, and nobody liked them. They were awful. And then when everything restarted, he got himself. He had a squirrely as coming out of the last corner. Uh, Super Max saved it. Charles Leclerc went past. Max tried to say that Charles Leclerc hit him, really. And then George Russell. Now I can't remember which corner he came in. Was it 2, 3, that kind of area?
It was into the
First,
first where
first
they
turn,
make eye
yeah.
Yep,
contact. Yeah.
into the first. So into the first. One of them went off onto the escape road. It was Max went off onto the escape road, kept position. The team told him to give the position back. He kind of was going to, then decided to not, and they hit each other. And the stewards gave him a 10-second penalty, which knocked him down to 10th place. Uh, the shortest version of that is Max Verstappen went in a half and hit George Russell, and then afterwards realised maybe he shouldn't have done that.
He certainly did. And as you said, there was a lot of analysis on it afterwards. A lot of people complaining that Nico Rosberg is the worst person for commentary. I actually think this was the perfect example of Nico Rosberg being an excellent pundit for Formula One. He gave all the right judgments. He said Max was well within his rights to be pissed off because George did hit him. George did not have all three requirements. He was alongside, he was far enough ahead, and he was in control of his car because he wasn't in control of his car. Now, he didn't lunge in like Max and lose total control. He was really close to Charles and lost a little bit of a twitch on the rear end and tapped off, actually kind of smacked off Max, to be fair. It was a
Mm.
hard enough hit wheel to wheel. Max takes to the exit road. He wasn't, he was still ahead technically. He didn't have to give the position back. He shouldn't have had to have given the position back. The weird part, as we were talking about just before we came on, James, was that Red Bull told him to. And that is not common for Red Bull. So why Why now? Why all of a sudden has GP decided that he's the quickest, most reactive person in the world and telling Max to do everything properly for a change?
Yeah, it was a strange one because I think that, like you say, previously it's always been they've always had quite a stern line that they're not going to give a position back until they absolutely have to. And I think what you said earlier about it being after the safety car, they probably were a bit overly cautious with it, thinking actually we'd rather let him go, lose one position, than potentially losing multiple. Of course, ironically, from doing that, they caused a series of events that caused Max to lose even more time. So it was an interesting one. I think of all the ones of all the attempted overtakes that have been noted for over the races, I actually thought this was probably like they picked this is one they were going to pick to make the decision. Actually, it was the easy. I think everyone thought actually that was probably 50-50. It was a bit of argy-bargy, and I don't think they would be if he'd kept going and nothing had happened. I don't think anyone really would have been upset that they kept the position. So it was a strange one. I think Red Bull unfortunately sort of caused their own issues there. And of course, everything, all hell broke loose with Verstappen doing his. I think this probably was the most obvious intentional barging of a driver you may ever see. You slow down on the side of the track, and then halfway, as the driver's halfway alongside you, you think, actually, no, I'm okay. Not turn into the corner, and then ram him off not ram him off the road. And I always like in these sort of situations, they never seem to have the one on board during the race for Max Verstappen that you really need.
And it never seems to be Max's.
Once again, the front facing onboard footage just wasn't available, and it's crazy how that seems to happen every single time Verstappen gets into a bit of a hoo-ha with people. That mysteriously the onboard footage disappears. Maybe they've got a plant in the FIA. I don't know, but
I actually have seen that online footage. It's on Twitter somewhere. I stumbled across it today.
they found it.
Yes,
Yeah, that's because every single human watching Formula One has access. Anyone with a Sky account can see his onboard. You can see all 20 drivers. So how the hell the FIA and Sky don't bloody have it? Sky broadcasts the damn thing. Why the hell do they not have access to the onboard?
Crazy.
I think they showed it once during the broadcast and then kind of not been shown since. And do you know, he was kind of steering left before he sped up. Right, sorry. So it was a left-hander and he kind of went right or straight on. He didn't put... So he basically did what we all seen.
Yeah, 100%.
He lost his proverbial brown stuff, and I can't say the actual word because we're on YouTube. So he lost it. He kind of came out. He was a bit childish in the pen afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking about one moment.
Why does it matter?
About the whole race.
Yeah.
Well, it does matter because it defines the whole thing. Because the team have put him in this position because they had the hards. Everyone else were on softs or newer softs. He was getting chewed up regardless. He was peed off by the time he walked out. His radio communication after he put the hards on was hilarious. It's like, what's this? What am I on? What's and then they're like, yeah, it's the hards. What the? Yeah, it's the only option. And you get chewed up, and that was literally it. Like, they shouldn't have been so quick, but then Saudi Arabia with the penalty really caused their issues. And I think they were like, this is 50-50. It wasn't as clear. They were a bit boneheaded and too stubborn at Saudi because it was clear as day you were going to have to do it. Whereas this time round it wasn't clear, so I think they should have been a bit.
It wasn't, and the difference this time around is Saudi was the very, very start of the race. So he had 50, 60 laps to try and vanish 5 seconds into the distance, which he mostly did. Only that Oscar had the measure of him. This time around it was 5 laps from the end. And they were just after a safety car. So even a 5-second penalty, even if they weren't 100% sure if it was his fault or not, a 5-second penalty was potentially meaning no points to them. As it is, he got a 10-second penalty and just finished 10th. I think he's lucky that they didn't let the cars at the back close up even more. 10-second penalty, I think it's a bit light.
Bit light. I think it's
light.
Unbelievable. But when I watched it yesterday, I was thinking Alex Albon got a 10-second penalty for the collision with, was it a Sauber or something? They touched at the first corner. Was it Liam Lawson? He pushed him off. He could damage his front wing. He gets a 10-second. But the FIA is saying that those two incidents are the exact same severity, which is just outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. I do think if that's any other driver, he's getting a much worse punishment.
Couldn't agree more.
Backfired, you know,
it's interesting that it's 2 weekends in a row that an incident involving George Russell on one side or the other gets a penalty that's way lighter than it should have been. Last week, I think George should have gotten a much harsher penalty for deliberately cutting the corner. This week, I think Max should have gotten a much harder penalty. Sorry, Coops, what were you going to say there?
The issue around race ban is going to be a big deal because the next two races, he's what is it, 1 point away?
He
One
is 1 point.
yeah.
He has until the end of June to not get
Or
1 point.
if I'm
So
a
yeah,
McLaren driver, I'm just poking him in the back every time I see him, getting him
yeah.
riled up.
This is the whole soccer analogy of football where you've got a hot-headed player and you're telling your
He's
defense,
on a booking.
see that player,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
clip his heels a couple of times, just give him
Yeah.
a wee nudge. Just run your stud along the Achilles when you're standing and watch him lose his proverbial brown stuff again.
That is a
Uh,
very, very good point. Max, of course, after that, he did get 3 penalties. He got the 10-second penalty, but he did get 3 penalty points. So at least they've given some level of
But that's
meaningful slap on the
another
wrist.
thing. Every 10 second time penalty now, you've got to give him 3 penalty points, apparently.
Well, that's but it means that Canada's an interesting one.
And Austria as well.
And Austria, where Max has let's say he has previous,
Yes.
lots of previous, but he has previous. And it's
I
their
mean,
home race. It'd be hilarious if he gets himself a race ban for their home race. Although at the same time, how close is he to Le Mans?
well,
Can he goose himself? Can he goose himself a race ban and go do Le Mans?
It's like
I mean,
Neymar always getting banned over
Injured
Christmas.
for his sister's
Yeah.
birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, yeah.
I mean, the thing is, though, he got a 10-second penalty, he got a point, and he only got a point in a time where McLaren got 1-2.
Mm.
In a season where he's hanging on already to try and get any kind of challenge. So, I mean, if you're really wanting to argue the whole point of giving him a ban or flinging him out of the race or whatever would be grandstanding because he's already damaged himself. He got a point, like a solitary point. Wow.
Mm.
You know, McLaren's maxed out what they could do. And the driver that was leading the championship won again. So in the longer term, it is one of those things that it's done the damage that it needs to do. And now he can't be Max Verstappen for the next 2 weekends because if he's Max Verstappen the next 2 weekends,
He's
and,
getting
and
banned.
he's getting a ban because you've got Oscar Piastri. I was thinking about this today, this morning. Oscar Piastri reminds me of a very chilled out Juan Pablo Montoya because Juan Pablo had the Latin Colombian kind of attitude and was very in your face. And anyone who doesn't know who he is, Google him and Google Juan Pablo Montoya broke my head. It's the funniest video you've ever seen in your life. And you'll understand what I mean. But Juan Pablo Montoya came in and basically sat next to Michael Schumacher, who was at the peak of his power, and went, "You must be blind or stupid to not know I was there." Oscar Piastri does it in a more subtle way. Oscar Piastri will go against Max on the track. Other drivers are like, "Oh, it's Max." Oscar doesn't care. He's going, "Right, no, I'm driving. I want that bit of track." So if Max is next to Oscar in the next two races, like Max is going to have to think, and I don't think he can. I don't think he's got that in his head to think, well, wait, I might get a ban. I think he'll just do what Max does and have to deal with it.
I think Lando as well is going to get into that mindset because he's the one who has the ding dongs with Max historically, through more fault of Lando's than Max, let's be fair. And Oscar has proven already that he can. Well, he's only really gone up against him once, but he won in Saudi. He won that battle the first time he goes up against Max in turn one. And he comes out on top, but then he lost in Imola. So okay, it's 1-1. But there's been no.
What about Miami?
Did he lose that in Miami? He beat them in Miami.
No, he beat Miami, yeah.
Yeah.
2-1.
Yeah, but that's only because Max has had a ding dong with Lando in the middle of that. So,
but the thing is for Oscar is he comes across like he doesn't care. He's
No,
not
he
going to
doesn't.
change. He's not going to change his driving or what he's going to do or his decision making because Max is in front of him.
But what's
Where
interesting
other
is
drivers do.
I think Lando's in that position where you're thinking about poking the bear. Lando's the one who sort of has to back out of the calls because he knows Max will hit him. Lando will now let Max hit him.
Oh,
I think knowing that, like, I'm just going to I'm going to stick it up the inside here into turn 2, turn 3 in Austria and let Max hit me again because he's getting a race ban for it. He got penalized for it last year. If he does it again, he'll get penalized again this year. Any penalty for Max gets a point now. That's the end of it. Will the FIA let their star champion get banned? Almost certainly not.
No, they won't.
Race bans are reserved for your Grosjeans.
They have no choice but to do it, and
No.
the world would go to shit.
Yeah.
I mean, this situation is basically for Lando and any other driver around Max is basically the F1 version of footballing kind of analogy that I always say of forcing the official to make a decision.
Yeah,
So you're going to
absolutely.
Yeah.
stick the car in there and go, right, stewards. So what you going
Come
to
on.
do?
Yeah.
Go on in.
Tell me he
Go
didn't
on.
do anything wrong there.
Aye.
So Max obviously got out of the car, fuming mad, went up to Rachel Brooks in Sky Sports, and top credit to Rachel. She got the long end of the straw this weekend.
Yeah.
She got some serious flack, and she did a really, really good job. So really, really top marks to Rachel. She's very good journalist, she's a very good reporter, she's a good presenter. She did her job. Lewis Hamilton gave her shit. She had to pull teeth out of Lando Norris. And then Max Verstappen was straight up just fucking rude to her. Really. Now, I know that he's pissed off. I know he hasn't reviewed everything yet, but he was too rude. But I thought Rachel's question was really, really important. She said, I have to ask you this question. And Max said, why does it matter? And Rachel quite rightly says, people watching at home need to know. In my head, I heard that as kids are watching you do that, Max. You're now a fucking father, and kids are watching you do that. Which she then went and asked Lando the same thing. If kids are go karting this weekend, they see their hero, the world champion, deliberately barging into people, they're going to go do the same thing. I didn't like Max's response. I thought he was very, very rude. But on the flip side of it, I think Christian Horner has slapped him upside the head because his Instagram post from earlier on today is as close to a total admission of guilt for Max Verstappen as we're ever going to get. He said, and I'm quoting, our tire choice to the end and some moves after the safety car restart fueled my frustration, leading to a move that was not right and shouldn't have happened. That's talking about the move on George, where he basically, he's admitting that he ran into him. He did it deliberately. He was trying to play the Saudi game, the game for a couple of years ago where you let someone pass and then immediately get the DRS on them, which they changed the rules of, so you're not allowed to do that anymore. So even if he thought he'd get away with that, he'd have been penalized for having, even if he hadn't hit George, he would have been penalized for not letting him pass properly. So he
Mm.
was just risking a snowball of penalties there. Um, a bad weekend for Max. I don't think anybody can, in their right mind, defend what he did. Yes, he was right to be
Mm.
pissed off. He shouldn't have had to have given the position back. We're all in 100% agreement of that. George did hit him unintentionally. George did hit him and push him wide. Shouldn't have had to have given the position back. Weird for Red Bull all of a sudden to become the moral superheroes on this. But you can understand Max's frustration, but in those circumstances, is it ever okay to take frustration out on the track?
Mm.
Do what Michael Schumacher did, wait to get into the pit lane, and then go chase him down and box the head off.
Swing him, yeah.
Then go swing. And by all means, or do what he Max himself did that to Esteban Ocon. Wait till you get into the pit lane and then go shoving him around. Whatever. Let your anger out then. Do not do it on track. It's way too dangerous. So
Speaking of Michael Schumacher, the last time Michael Schumacher did it on track, he got chucked out of the championship.
Yes, he did.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not even like that's a recent thing of, oh, well, they used to do it back in the day. Yeah, Schumacher did it once and he got away with it. He did it again and he failed. Senna did it once and got away with it and did it again and failed, I think. So it's not a thing that happens anymore. So, there's no reason for it. And as Max sort of said himself, he's kind of out of the running now. But that weekend, that really hurt for Red Bull because even if we said like the hard tires was a bit of an odd call, and Max sort of said himself when he was a bit calmer that if they'd have stayed out on the use like 8 lap old softs, he probably could have had a better chance of fighting.
I don't think that's even that old.
Oh, it's not that old.
That's half a stint that he was doing beforehand, So
when I was
eight
listening,
laps old with 4 laps in the safety car, you can cool them right the hell down again.
yeah.
I was listening to some other podcasts and doing some stuff earlier on today. Kind of an agreement he probably would have been able to stay ahead of Leclerc.
Yeah.
If he never pitted. The McLarens were just too good. So even if he was out front of the McLarens, they would have been right next to him. They would have passed him. It wouldn't have been a problem. And like I say, he could have probably held off.
Even as it was, with an absolutely massive snap of oversteer from Max and Charles going down the outside of him, he only just passed him. Now he didn't have DRS, but he only just got past him. So yeah, I think like hindsight's 2020, but that weekend has cost Red Bull an absolute boatload of points, and they have dropped to 4th in the championship. So Ferrari have earned themselves a boatload of points. And actually, let's move on to Ferrari right now because Charles Leclerc had an up and down weekend, I think is the best way of putting it. They had an odd strategy in Q3 where they only went out on the single set of tires. They wanted to, for some reason, it was decided that the softs were the best tire for race day. We saw everybody do 2 or 3 stints on the softs. So they saved a set of softs for the race. Charles thought it was a bit weird. I think the weirdest thing, James, though, is that they sent him out at the start of Q3. At the very least, if you're going to do 1 lap, wait for the end. It's not Monaco. There's very little chance someone's going to smack a wall and you get a red flag. Wait till at least the final run. Go out at the start of the final runs. It was a bit of a weird one from Ferrari, but a recovery to the podium. So mixed weekend for Charles.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting, definitely an interesting decision. I can't remember the last time we had a team save a set of softs for the race, so like not
Very
do a
odd.
lap in qualifying. It's a,
Mm.
a very, very different approach. But I agree with you actually. I didn't really think about that actually. Why did they send them out at the start? You'd think tracks rub it in a little bit more. A few more cars go out right to the death, go for it then.
It's
I guess maybe they
understandable
were
for
thinking just
Fernando
in case,
Alonso. It's understandable for
Yeah,
Fernando Alonso. He wasn't getting top three, and he wanted the track to himself at home. That was probably his call to
yeah.
go out completely against the grain. But it's a weird one for Charles.
Yeah, and actually, I think he had a he was having a good race. I think obviously we'll sure we'll get on to Hamilton in a moment, but he was obviously clearly fast in Hamilton in the first stint, but then just got stuck in that no man's land, which I think just happens quite a lot at the front
Mm.
of F1 at the moment. The drivers get into there. It takes a few laps to get past people. Sort of Lando, by the time he got past Max, he was 5 seconds behind. Oscar never really made too many inroads. Like, we're
Mm.
seeing that you can't really gain and gain and gain. So you get into these moments, but he was there at the right time to take advantage. Of Max's very large moment at the end at the end of the lap. So Charles, I thought Charles is always going to be the sort of driver that's going to be there and thereabouts to clean up if need be. So I think it was just the strange. Do we think the saving the soft tires worked? I think it would have worked if he was maybe got slightly higher up in the grid because obviously he's got held up by Lewis really. But I think
Mm.
it was not a bad idea, and it's an interesting decision. I think one that probably would have worked, but they just didn't quite get it right in qualifying.
Yeah, I think so. And in fairness, again, bring back to Rachel Brooks, she had a good day of interviews. Tough though it was. She asked exactly that of Charles. She said, "Did saving the set in qualifying ultimately kind of put you in the position to have the fresh tires at the end to earn that podium?" And Charles said, "Yes, because if Max had stayed out, would he have got him? It wouldn't have been a guarantee, but he still would have been in the conversation to have a go at him, especially starting as far down as he did. Fourth place would have been a good finish for Charles after that qualifying.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. On the other side of the garage, though, Coops, bad weekend for Lewis Hamilton. Again, another difficult interview. Just in a terrible mood, really, really pissed off. Didn't want to answer any questions. Didn't want to say what the issues was. Just wanted to say, "Oh, I'm done. It's crap. It's all shit. I don't think they're going to find a solution for me." Not great. Listen to Lewis Hamilton talk like that. And again, I'll bring up the fact that anybody who thought him moving to Ferrari would all of a sudden make him a 15-time champion this year was very deluded. And I think Lewis is awake to that a bit more now.
Yeah, I think basically the problem was they just couldn't find the balance the whole weekend for the Ferrari for Lewis. Uh, and he got swallowed up. I mean, he got passed by Hülkenberg in a Sauber on the straight. Uh, yeah, and it's quite difficult for the journalists and for us watching the pen because they're coming out at the end of a race, like Max having his issues right at the end, Lewis coming out, the adrenaline's pumping, the emotions are still raw. He probably hasn't really had a chance to go and speak to the team and understand a wee bit more. And we know from Lewis, if you give him a bit of time, he'll probably come out and give you an answer. He'll probably come out
Hmm.
and say a wee bit more. But when you're shoving a microphone in his face when and we all know we've had it when we're peed off and partners or friends are in your face and you just don't want to talk. You're just like, going, shut up, leave me alone. So it's and then you get a microphone and you got all these millions of people just waiting to hear, and you're just like, nah, I'm just can't wait to go and get on my plane and go home and
Hmm.
figure this out. And Lewis will come to a decision sooner rather than later. If it continues longer throughout the season, I don't know if he really have the energy to hang on and see what the new Ferrari's like with the new regulations. Um, I'm not holding out much hope with what I'm hearing about them, to be honest, in general. But yeah, it's difficult, and we're seeing more of these difficult races for Lewis than not. And
Hmm.
as you say, like it was probably the right time to leave Mercedes because it just was not working. You could see they were annoyed with each other with the comments they were making, and the kind of, it's great being here.
Hmm.
Uh, blink twice and we'll send in help. Uh, you know,
Toto wanted. I know he played the victim when Lewis was gone, but Toto was the happiest man in the world. He's like, "This is the easiest thing in the world. I don't have to fire a seven-time world champion, and I get to put my superstar kid, who we'll come on
Yeah.
to in a sec, has had a bad triple header. But I get to put my superstar in the car without having to fire a seven-time champion to do it. So, it was the right thing. Lewis is finding himself sort of in that no man's land now in the middle of the
Hmm.
top 10. He's currently sixth on 71 points. Charles Leclerc is well ahead of him on 94 points. And Kimi Antonelli is behind him on 48 points. Now, had Kimi had a better triple header, that would have been a lot closer. But Lewis, he's kind of carving out that no man's land sixth place in the championship where he'll be ahead of Formula 1.5, but he won't be anywhere close to the top five. That's sort of where it's going for him. Next year might be better. That car will kind of get rid of the most of the ground effect sort of issues that he really seems to struggle with. Those cars allegedly should be a little bit more lively, I think is the way it's starting to be described, which I think will suit him down to the ground. He's a very aggressive driver. He loves a car that's on the edge. We've seen that from his absolute best days. But yeah, we can only hope as well. I'm not particularly a Lewis Hamilton fan, but I'm sure Lewis Hamilton fans can only hope that next year goes a bit better for him.
Before we go on, Ferrari have a big update coming for, you guessed it, Silverstone.
Silverstone, yeah.
With the whole rear end of the cars getting redone, which is what. So basically, what happened in China was they were able to lower the car to the point that it suited Lewis, and he won the sprint. But then was it China that he got disqualified in the
In
race
the race, yeah.
because they lowered it too low? So they've had to redesign it. So they've had to raise things up, which means the car they can't find a window for Lewis. But they've redesigned the back end of the car to allow them to go back to where Lewis likes it in that sweet spot. So I will guarantee it now that Lewis will probably win one race and it will be Silverstone and the world will go mental.
Yep, I think that's a perfectly fair assumption to make because well he did it last year, didn't he? Out of nowhere.
Yep.
Oh, it was good on it. Even if you're not a Lewis fan,
Oh, I
that
was
Yeah.
that
delighted with
was
that.
slight tear in the eye, kind of like, oh, Lewis, Jesus,
Yeah,
what you doing to us?
couldn't agree more. Like I said, I'm not a Lewis Hamilton fan, but one of the best moments of the past several years was the "Through goes Hamilton" moment in 2022 for all of the two corners that lasted. But that was incredible because it was Hamilton taking the lead in Silverstone, but then from to win it last year in a car at a time where he really was nowhere close to a race victory was incredible. So yeah, if ever they were going to it makes sense for Ferrari to do that as well. If they're bringing one last big upgrade package, by the sounds of it, it's to help Lewis to do it in Silverstone. And uh, Lewis Hamilton on his own is worth an extra 2 or 3 tenths around Silverstone. I think that's perfectly fair. No matter what car he's in, there's home field advantage, and then there's Lewis Hamilton and Silverstone advantage. That's exciting. And then hopefully they can do something similar for Monza because I'll be there. It's the only time this year I'll wear any Ferrari gear. Because they won't let me in if I'm in papaya, will they? Um, let's move on then to the star of the show, Nico Hülkenberg. Um,
Woo.
star of the show, fifth in a wheelbarrow. Sorry, fifth in a Sauber. Absolutely incredible. And fifth, okay, fair enough. He inherited it after Max's penalty. He was going to finish sixth, but fifth in the Sauber, and he did it on pace. He overtook Lewis Hamilton on pure pace down the straight. Um, and James, first of all, it's his best result since 2019. We finished fifth for Renault. And it's a huge argument that the driver of the day vote should happen after the race, not 5 laps from the end.
Yeah, and not be voted by the public as well would help
Mm.
for that award. No, it was fantastic actually. Yeah, because he got a great start. Didn't I think he was battling Fernando Alonso on the first lap for like 11th,
Mhm.
12th, and I was this close to my prediction of two teammates colliding the first corner. It was the two Saubers as they went into the off onto the cutoff area. I was this close, but yeah, it was fantastic. And actually, he was making good progress all day, and I think. Nico Hülkenberg is a very good driver, and he has these moments where he just pulls out these performances in. Obviously, he's never really been in a front. He was never been in a front running car, but today was his day, and he was looking quick all afternoon. I think he was on slightly newer tyres than Lewis. I want to say, which may have helped him. But
Mm.
again, even sixth in a Sauber, as it's fantastic for them. I think they jumped up to eighth in the championship as well, so they made some good progress there. But I think that I don't know when their last upgrade was. Maybe Imola. I want to say if it was the first one European.
Mhm.
They've
Yeah.
definitely taken a step forward since
Mhm.
then. They've been in and around. There's a few weekends where they were basically at the back, like Miami. I was thinking, if you think of and things like that, you don't really, you can't really think of what they were doing in the races because you never really saw them towards the back. But the last 3 or 4 races, they've been, you know, up into the teens. Bortoleto had a good weekend again this
Mm.
weekend. Obviously, Monaco's a little bit of a hard one to take because you never quite know with Monaco, but I think Hülkenberg had a fantastic performance, and these are the exact performances what Sauber slash Audi hired him for. That's the sort of performances you know you're going to get from him. He
Mm.
might not do it every week, but he'll be there when it matters. So yeah, fantastic performance. And again, I don't. This livery might be growing on me as well. I don't know what it is. The Bortoletta's helmet. I don't. The colours don't match, but they do match. I'm just like, do you know what? I can see more of it. I don't mind a bit of fluorescent green all of a sudden.
Do you know what it is? You're seeing it more often.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
It's
it's
on
getting
TV.
used to it.
I'm glad you brought up Bortoleto because I just wanted to touch on him very quickly as well. He had his best qualifying in Formula One so far. He qualified 12th, comfortably out qualified Nico Hülkenberg. Actually, he started 16th.
Mhm.
Good weekend from Bortoleto. Qualified 12th, finished 12th. Possibly a little bit disappointed to not get into the points. He was 4 seconds off Max Verstappen 10th at the end. So he was sort of just caught up in that Lawson train at the very, very end as they were trying to unlap themselves. I think if they'd have got a little bit closer, maybe they'd have had a shout. But good weekend for Bortoleto as well. He was sort of kind of dropping out of the conversation of rookies this year because, as I said, he's never been on TV. He's done a good job for what he had, but
Yeah,
good kind of reminder for him. Say, as I'm still here, I'll be in that Audi
yeah.
next year. Don't forget about me.
I think he's been qualifying. His qualifying's been better than his pro race performance. I think he's out qualified Hulkenberg. I want to say at least 3 times. That's where his performances I've noticed have come from. I think he's slipped back a few in races, had a few crashes, but I think
Mm.
rookies are going to do that. But I think for this race, he was in and around the points. I think with the amount of pit stops that were happening, it's quite hard to remember exactly where he was in the shuffle the whole time because people were offsetting. But um, I think, yeah, like you said, I think it's a good performance, and he does show up on the Saturdays. He is in and around it. There's a few performances where Hulkenberg was got knocked out well into Q1, but and Bortoleto was in and around it in Q2. So yeah, I think
Mm.
he's a decent driver. He's just unfortunately in one of the cars a little that just it's hard to show your potential. Obviously, Antonelli and Hadshard's are probably in the better cars, and then
Mm.
Behrman's that has seems to be very hit and miss, but when it is good, it seems to be pretty good. So and Bortoleto, but I think this upgrade. I don't know if this is Jonathan Wheatley doing helping out because I know he's suddenly he's joined them, but I think the trajectory definitely is up for both of them. I think Bortoleto is going to show these. If you got the qualifying pace, you should really once the consistency's there and the
Mm.
pace is there in the races, he should give Hulkenberg a run for his money. I think.
Yep, I completely agree. And again, that whatever upgrade they said, that Hulkenberg actually put down their performance. The fact that he was able to actually fight Lewis, they had a bit of a tire advantage, like you said, but he was just quicker
Yeah, and
than
he
a
was
lot of
sixth
them.
anyway.
Yeah,
Do
he
you know what I mean?
was.
Even without it, he was sixth, which is a fantastic performance.
It would have been the best, whatever way he cut it. It would have been the Sauber's best result of the season.
Mm,
Previously, it was seventh by Hulkenberg at the start of the year. Good result for Sauber. It's nice to actually talk about them and to get them in a
mm.
little bit of conversation, not just because they're becoming Audi, but because they seem to like they haven't just given up on this year by the looks of it. That upgrade was a substantial one, and it worked.
Mhm.
And now, watch how I segue this. We're going from upgrades and Gabriel Bortoletto's previous junior program. McLaren,
Nice,
the only team.
seamless,
Wow.
Yeah,
seamless.
yeah. You need a map
Smashed it.
to guide you through that one.
Dear, dear.
McLaren, the only team, hilariously, who did not bring a front wing upgrade to
Yeah,
this
love
year,
that.
to this race, when they all changed the front wing. Christian Horner is the saltiest human in the world this weekend, not just because his driver cost him all the points, but because the one team who he thought were going to get absolutely handcuffed by this thing didn't even need to change their wing. They either, I don't know when they last brought a wing update, but it must have been several races ago.
I think
And
Imola.
they, yeah, probably Imola. So if they needed to make this change, they thought, well, we're quick enough without it. Let's just make the change early. And then we have I could just see Zach Brown's Brownhousery to say we bring that wing upgrade, and then when we get to Spain, we won't bring a wing upgrade, and nobody will notice. But good weekend for McLaren Coops. A 1-2 dominant from Oscar, and all things considered, Lando Norris poor start, but he's outscored everyone over this triple header.
Yeah, it's a good one. And they did kind of do an upgrade for the front wing, which they put an extra wee, that's like the stanchion thing to keep it rigid. So there's one extra. So it's not an upgrade, they just added a wee thing on to the front wing to make it to keep it within the non-flexy, whatever
Mm.
it is. But yeah,
Didn't slow them
the
down by
kit.
2/10 though, did it?
No, it didn't.
In fact, it
And
was the biggest qualifying gap margin of the whole season, and it was over 2/10 to his own teammate.
it was 2/10. That's the biggest margin for pole. Yeah, and yeah, it wasn't pole for Max. No.
No.
Interestingly, going back to the flexure wing thing, so the making the car more rigid at the front end has actually helped Red Bull to balance the car better, which means that they just didn't quite understand how flexi bodywork worked and how to adapt it to the car to make it work better. Because as we all know, the Red Bull's not an easy car to get into its window, and even Max is struggling to get it into the window. But with his talent and his drivability, he's able to kind of get it where it kind of should be. But yeah, the issue you have with a technical directive like this is that you're trying to handcuff a car that is just good all round.
Mm.
It's just a good car. It's good. That's why Zach Brown and McLaren were like, "You're going to do what? All right, okay, fine. I'm going to put kettle on. Whatever.
Take a drink
Fine.
out of my tire water bottle.
Cool. They bought whatever you want. It might shave off a wee 1/10 here, but the car, everything about the car just works. And we've said this for a couple of seasons now that the one team that are able to get everything from the computer screen and the CFD to the wind tunnel to the car, and it all works, is McLaren.
Mm.
When they do their models, because I don't know if anyone listening or watching knows this, and apologies if you do, but you can't fully test the ground effect cars in the wind tunnel because it's not a full model. It's not a full car. I don't know if it's like
It's 50% or something, I think, isn't it?
50% or something, yeah. The problem is that the minute you try and get them low enough to start studying the ground effect, you're firing the model into the fan because you can't get it that low.
Which is what Mercedes' big problem has been in this entire ground effect era, is that they've been running their cars too low to the belt in the wind tunnel, and it's not correlating properly. And
Yep.
they had no idea why porpoising happened for so
Yeah.
long.
And I mean, Toto said that after that first season, they got the sides wrong, and they've been chasing their tail ever since. They're kind of getting it back there. But, McLaren just slowly but surely sorted the mistakes, hired the right people, built the right stuff, and just got it working overall. Now, a technical directive that stops your front wing from flexing it when you're going in a straight line, it's not going to slow a car down. It's designed like that. It's just not going to do it. And, the fact that you're talking around about 100 points already in the constructors for McLaren shows you where they're at. So I did have it, but I don't have it just now.
They're just shy of 200 points clear.
Well, there you go.
Ferrari are 165. McLaren are on 362.
Already.
Yeah.
And also, before we go, Piastri has now got 8 podiums in a row, and I think there's only 2 other drivers that have done that. And I think it's Lewis Hamilton and one other person, it's Max Verstappen or something. So a very
I think it
exclusive
was for McLaren, and I think it was Senna was the other one.
Yeah. So there's only there's less than 5. Let's put it that way. I couldn't remember. I did have it in my head and I forgot it because I'm old. So it's like Sean, you and I have been McLaren fans for a long time. Now we're talking GP2 engine, back at the back of the grid with literally no sponsor, but the sponsor that every car has to have.
That's like the playing the game thing. I had forgotten that. And you've put it back in my head now, and now it won't get out of my head, and now it's in everybody's head. So sorry about all that. GP2 engine,
GP2 engine, and when Honda were in, and you got what do you call it, the token system, where you got like you mind the grid penalties that kept going, and McLaren
like the 52
were
place,
62,
160 place penalty or something like that. They changed the whole engine twice.
Yeah,
start
and
lap down
weekend,
or something.
it was amazing. It was the funnest time. Because you kind of knew where we're at, and now we're reaping the rewards. And this is like this could be a case study for anybody who wants to run a Formula One team. You look at McLaren, and if you've got the patience to hire the right people and give them the autonomy to run the team the way they want to run it. Make sure you hire the right people, and don't be afraid if you make a mistake, because was it first year of the new regulations? They actually came out in the launch and went, "Yeah, we've got this wrong."
Yeah, and they were last in the championship by round 6.
Yeah, and
they finished second in the championship.
Yeah, because they knew what was coming. They tried something, didn't work. Figures were like, numbers aren't working here. We're going to turn round. James Key was quite promptly kicked out the door because it just didn't work. And they fixed it. Yeah. So
nice.
Well, I have a fun one for you here. Now, this is stats done by racefans.net. So shout out to them for doing the maths on this, because I wasn't bothered. Based on, this is before Spain, they calculated this, but after winning in Monaco, they said that if McLaren keeps scoring points at this current rate, which 1-2 in Spain is the current rate they're on, they could clinch the title with 7 rounds remaining, which is very nearly a third of the season.
Yeah,
they will win it,
and that's
after 2/3 of the season.
That's even better than like the 2014 Mercedes when they like clinched it in Russia, which is like what 3 or 4 races to it was towards the back of the calendar anyway. That's the serious level of dominance.
The last team to win a title at a similarly early stage with so much of the season left was, shocking, McLaren in 1988, nice. Where they won the title with 5 of the 16 rounds remaining. So again, about a third of the season. So they would break their own record, which is insane. And especially bearing in mind that there are
more races.
Very nearly 10 more races now, 8 more races now than there were then, and more points on offer. It's an incredible stat, and as a McLaren fan, long may it continue.
Could you imagine the racing when they've clinched the constructors and they just say to Piastri and Oscar, Piastri, Norris, and go
crazy. yeah.
That's surely the thinking, and I think that's partly why there hasn't been much of a inter-team fighting. The two lads seem to be still getting on very well in public, at the very least. They're still sort of joking around together. It's Nico and Lewis 2013 before they absolutely despised each other sort of vibe. The millisecond that they clinched that title, which, if I'm not wrong, that probably is Singapore.
Oh, that's a great shape. I was going to say America.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Singapore. Woo! I did my maths at that time. Yeah. They could win the championship in Singapore at this rate, possibly Azerbaijan, if Red Bull and Ferrari keep having issues, which is insane. So they're probably thinking, like, right, lads, plow on, do the team game, 1-2s every weekend. Don't give a hell which one of you finishes first or second. 1-2s every weekend till after the summer break, and then you can kill each other for all we care. Max can win the drivers' championship for all we care. Just get the constructors. It's absolutely incredible, and the turnaround, like you said, in just under 2 years is from being last in the championship to there's absolutely no question McLaren will win it this year. Let's move on then to Aston Martin. A bit of an up and down weekend for them, to say it lightly. Fernando Alonso, on the positive side of things, finally scored points for the first time this season, finishing 9th, scoring a couple of points at his home race. Got his glory run in qualifying out in the track on his own. Great place for him to do it. But Lance Stroll apparently threw a strop after qualifying, which apparently had nothing to do with the fact that he then pulled out of the race because he flared up injury from when he broke his wrist a couple of years ago. Weird weekend for them, James, but it's good to see Fernando in the points at long last.
Yeah, and he deserved it, didn't he? Really, over the last, he's been in point scoring positions, and the reliability has let him down, which is unusual for Formula One this year. But yeah, happy for him. Obviously, a bit of an uncharacteristic mistake, locking up at turn 5, was it? When he ran out into the gravel, that was quite an uncharacteristic mistake. But he had some fantastic moves around the outside of turn 3.
He needed to put on a show for the home crowd.
Yeah, he really did. And that gyro camera angle, when you're real close combat, they've timed it beautifully a few times, didn't they? So yeah, I'm happy Fernando he got some points. He deserved it, especially after the couple of weekends that he's had. And yeah, it's a weird one for Lance Stroll. Well, again, it's just the weird life of Lance Stroll, isn't it? Really, he does what he wants to do, and I don't know how long. I don't know if he's going to be out for longer than when he missed the next race, for example. Will Felipe Dragovic be able to jump in the car? They've got a couple of weeks, haven't they? So
possibly if he's not at Le Mans.
Well, he
Felipe
will
Dragovic?
be
Yeah,
Drugovich is driving Le Mans, so
I think all. So it's actually more likely that Bottas might get into the Aston in 2 weeks
Oh,
because
if you're Drogovic, do
all of
you pull out
Aston's.
of Le Mans? Do you pull out Le Mans to try and
no,
get in that Aston Martin?
no.
Oh, I don't know. I think I would.
I mean, I mean, there might be a chance. It just depends. It's all logistics about him getting over and
Hmm.
back and stuff. It's a strange one.
As of today, reports coming out, Felipe Drugovich is ready to ditch Le Mans for Formula One.
Yeah,
So
see, I think the problem for Drogovic is that he's in the one team where one of the drivers doesn't matter how rubbish they are, you're not going to
it's not
beat him
going
in
anywhere.
performance. So, but I think I must admit, I think I think he has to. If he has the chance to drive that Formula One car, he has to try and prove what he can do because
Mm.
you see other drivers come in. Colin Pinto, for example, last year came in really because the other driver was rubbish and he actually performed and is now back in it. I think he needs to do that, unfortunately, but well, not unfortunately, he needs to do that. But yeah, Lance Stroll, yeah, I don't know what else to say. To be honest, we'll
Yeah.
probably see him in a couple of races time. He'll come back, be miserable, and then we'll keep going.
I wonder if he does really well, will they finally just shuffle them off to Le
Yeah,
Mans? To be perfectly fair, I've said this a couple of times.
I think put him out of his misery.
I actually
Yeah,
think
just
Lance
get him
Stroll will
out of
do.
there.
I actually think Lance Stroll will do very, very well in that Valkyrie.
Yeah.
I think
Hmm.
I think he's a perfect sports car driver. You've seen
Mm.
loads of drivers leave Formula One. Go, it's Sebastian Buemi. He's a four-time
Yeah,
champion in WEC. He's a WEC champion. Felipe Massa's like they've all gone off
And
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 had success.
Antonio Giovinazzi won Le Mans,
Won Le Mans,
he
yeah.
did.
Nico
Yeah,
so
Hülkenberg's won Le Mans.
yeah, can't even get a podium in Formula One.
Exactly.
Fernando Alonso's one.
Yeah.
No, no, one.
So
Interestingly, when it comes to Stroll, so he had an issue, got out of the car, flung the rattle out the pram, stormed out the back of the garage, and then didn't take the car to the weighbridge, which would
mm,
mean that he would have been disqualified from qualifying, regardless. Because he was supposed to go to the weighbridge, he didn't. He drove into the garage, got out of the car, had a strop, left.
mm,
And they're like, oh, right. And then there was the decision to withdraw him because
mm.
of his wrist issue. For anyone with the conspiracy theories, to get out of being in a race, you have to have like fit notes and doctors' things, and the FIA have to see all this and verify it. So there is probably an issue. Apparently, he kind of managed it. Now, what you got to think is this: he rushed back after breaking both wrists in 2023.
3.
Yep. And everyone was like, it's too soon because you remember
Mm.
seeing him in the in car, he was driving, it was on the straight, and he's had to lift him out, and he was
Yeah.
stretching him, and he was
And he
resting
couldn't
them and stuff.
turn. He
Yeah.
couldn't. He
You
had
had
to
to
take a hand
kind
off the
of,
wheel, didn't he? And
uh,
stuff. Yeah.
so that's caused issues, and anyone who knows, there's a lot of bones and things in your wrists to keep them
Mm.
working the way they should be.
All the
Uh,
more reason to shuffle him off to the Valkyrie because Robert Kubica had a perfectly good career in sports. He struggled to come back to Formula One, but he can still do it in sports cars. They're not as physically demanding, and most of them have power steering, proper power steering, and
mm.
traction control.
The,
Um,
the the biggest thing, the thing I wanted to kind of touch on was so he got as far as qualifying. He said there's pains in his hand and the wrist, and it was causing a lot of trouble. I think that Monaco was probably the point that's really pushed it over the edge.
mm,
Because every other race you could probably think of, the longer you're not really turning. I mean, how many times was it? 77 times they had to go around that hairpin. And you've
Mm.
seen how drivers with no injuries in their wrist would have to kind of
mm.
force the car in there. And if you've got issues with your wrist and your hands, I mean, that poor guy must have been screaming every time he took that, every time he took the corner. You can just hear him in the helmet and every time he's trying to turn. So he probably is. He flew away on Sunday, I think, to Geneva to get this wrist fixed. Do I see him coming back in 2 weeks' time after surgery on a wrist that's already damaged? I would be very surprised. And I think it's, as you say, this could be a decision that could define his career in the longer term in terms of healing and being
Might be
able
a
to
bit
do
similar
things.
to Toto Wolff. The decision for Lawrence Stroll might be, or well, actually for Adrian Newey, might be made for him. The decision he wants to be made might be made for him. That you won't have to actually say it out loud. Lance might not be it now. Okay, he's come back from this before. It's taken 2 years for this to flare up again. You're right. There's something like 1,500 turns he would have had to have made in Monaco, including doing the hairpin 77 times, and that's not even accounting for qualifying and practice. Um, so I'm sure that hurt. And Spain's a tough enough track as well. Like there's long, fast corners, especially that final section. You're clinging on for dear life with the car fighting back against you. That can't have been easy, but they might. This might be. I'm not suggesting for a millisecond that someone's come in and smacked him with a bat and said, "Your wrist is broken. Go hop in go get surgery because we're going to the Centuries of Valkyrie." But this could be the decision that gets made for him, and maybe that allows Max to go to Aston next year. All that to be said, Felipe Drugovich will probably be in the car in Canada. If Lance comes back, he probably will be back for Austria, which would not be a bad one to come back for. It's essentially one big straight line.
I think
There's
also
not too many
before we
bad
move on again,
turns.
sorry, they might be a bit more cautious with it when you go to Canada. So if Lance says, "Yeah, I'm all right," I think they might bring Drugovich over because as long as you don't qualify, you could
Yes,
start the race. So that
that's a
was
good
the
point. And to anyone asking, that's why Djokovic couldn't replace him for this weekend because Lance had qualified.
so you can't replace somebody who's already qualified in the regulations. You just can't do
Yes,
it. So what they might do is if Lance thinks, "Do you know what, I can," I think they'll give him FP1, they might give him FP2. And
hmm.
if he's complaining of any more pain, then they'll have Drugovic to go, "Right, do you know what,
For
you're going to do
Saturday,
the rest of the weekend." So I
which
think they might do that.
which I'm sure Lance to be up to. I'm not the biggest fan of him. Don't particularly like him. He's not. He doesn't have the best person. His personality is rich Formula One driver, and even at that, it's kind of just rich boy, isn't it? But every Formula One driver wants to race their home race, and it is he is the only driver whose home race is in his home city, other than Charles Leclerc. There's only two of them. Every other home, like the Silverstone, is nowhere near where any British driver is from. Barcelona is nowhere near where it's not actually in the city. It's miles outside the city. So any of these city races are actually nowhere near the city, with the exception, like I said, of Monaco and Singapore. And none of the drivers are from Singapore. The Montreal track is in Montreal. It's on an island just off the center, but it's on the tube. It's on the underground line. It is in the city. It is a city race. The whole city shuts down. It's the coolest place in the world. If you ever want to go to a race, go to Montreal. Highly recommend. They love Formula One over there. He will want to come back for that. He will want to be involved in that race. The only place in the world where he's the most popular driver, and rightly so, because he's from that city. There's a champion from that city, and the track is named after one of the drivers who's from that city. They love Formula One in Montreal, so he'll want to get back. And as a Canadian Formula One fan, a fan of Canadian Formula One, I would want Lance to race in Canada, because even if he finishes last, he'll still have the hype around him. But wish him a speedy recovery, regardless. Don't want any injuries on any Formula One drivers, no matter what our personal opinions of him. I hope he does get better soon. And whether that means he's better for Formula One or better for not Formula One, I just hope the surgery goes well for him. That's the last we'll say on that. Moving on then to Racing Bulls and Yuki Tsunoda. I'm going to do them both together on this because we've done Max Verstappen, and I think if we do Max Verstappen again, we might be here all night. So where did they finish? Sorry, we got very distracted on that one. So Yuki Tsunoda finished 13th, not great. Liam Lawson finished having qualified 20th, really not great. Liam Lawson finished 11th. And Isaac Hadjar is a superstar. He finished 7th. James, all of them. Yeah, if you were Christian Horner, how long until you offer Isaac Hadjar that second seat in the Red Bull? I can't
No.
believe we're having that discussion again, but
Yeah,
it's
I
what we have
really
to
hope.
do.
Yeah, I really hope he doesn't do it until at least next year. Hadjar, it just surely they've hopefully learned their lesson that you can't just stick anyone in that car. And I think Sonoda's earned the right to keep going in that car until things get better. Of course, qualifying 20th is again that just shows the situation is no better than when Lawson was in the car, and they just made me rush that decision. So, but let's stick to the good performance because Hadjar once again he's become a fixture in the top 10. He's basically the best of the rest most weekends at this point. And he's just been fantastic. He's been consistent, very few errors, just does his own thing. So fantastic. And I think Lawson had a better performance. He seems to have picked up a little bit more. He seems to be a little bit closer to Hadjar in the performance. Obviously, still behind, but he's getting a bit more, a bit closer. And unfortunately for Sonoda, because he said that he was actually quite happy with his lap in
Hmm.
qualifying. He just wasn't very quick. I don't know if he had damage. I know he ran over a curb and he asked him to look at his underfloor. There might have been something there, but then he's also not really. He doesn't be making that much ground up in the races either.
And they changed the rear wing to make again to give him
Yeah,
more rear downforce to make the car more stable from him. It didn't work
it's
because then
a
he was just a sitting duck.
it's a really tricky one. What did Verstappen said he's not a pancake, didn't he, after qualifying? But it's a tricky one. I just think I wouldn't I wouldn't put Hadjar in. I wouldn't want to touch that second Red Bull with the
Mm-mm.
10 pole at this point. Let them finish it off, get into new regulations, and see maybe what happens with that instead. So I hope they, for everyone's sake, I hope they don't put Hadjar in that car. But who knows? Helmut might get itchy fingers and decide, you know what, it's time for a change.
No, I agree. I hope they don't put Hajar is already my shout for rookie of the season, arguably potentially driver of the season if he keeps this
Mm.
up. He's in ninth at the moment on 21 points, ahead comfortably of Sonoda on 10 and Lawson on 4. And over the course of the triple header, Isaac Hajar has outscored Red Bull and Mercedes,
That's impressive.
which is
That's-
incredible. Because Kimi
yeah.
Antonelli, who we haven't actually mentioned, but there's no real point. He got unlucky in Spain. His engine went pop. But he has not had a good triple header. George has been the one, and obviously George got no points in Monaco either. And he wouldn't have outscored Red Bull if Max had kept his temper under control, but as it happened, he did. So
Love
yeah,
that.
absolutely incredible. And if I was Hajar, I'd maybe want to get into that Red Bull at the end of the season. Give him the last three races. Give him a go in the last three races when he's got himself into a position where his championship position can't really be affected. Like if he goes into that Red Bull now and doesn't score points to the end of the year, he's finishing at 18th. And that's really unfair on him when he is an absolute contender for the top 10 in Formula One this year. And as a rookie in what should be an out of the points 10th place finishing car is extraordinarily impressive. But yeah, if I was him, I'd say, yeah, give me the car in Brazil. Let me have a go. Or Vegas. And see what's what, and then give me the drive full, and then let me have a pre-season, lads, like Kimi Antonelli got, but like Lawson didn't. Put him in the car at the end, let him have a pre-season with the new car, and then see what's what. But yeah, superstar in the making. Very impressive, Isaac Hadjar. Big fan of his. He came into this season with the worst start possible, and has been pretty much invulnerable since then. He's been absolutely incredible. Very quickly, and before we finish up, Williams, Coops. They said coming into this weekend, to their credit, that this would not be a good track for them. But my God, that is the worst weekend Williams have had in a long time. And that's saying something considering they've been crap for so long.
Yeah, I mean they knew the car just doesn't work well in the long sweeping corners. It's kind of baked into those cars the last few years. They kind of lose efficiency of downforce kind of halfway around. So they knew it was going to be at the back. Albon just did not like his front wing.
Mm.
Just for whatever reason, woke up one morning, it was almost like Formula One body dysmorphia. He's like, "Joe, I don't like you," and just decided to try and figure out a way to destroy his car. And the funny part of that whole weekend was they were about to retire him, and then the stewards went, "He's got a 10-second penalty." Oh, Craig, get back out, quick, which is really funny.
Just very Sergio Perez of him to go back
Yeah.
out and serve the
So
penalty in the
yeah,
race.
they pulled him in, then the stewards were like 10-second penalty. Like, oh, get back out, one more lap, serve the penalty, then we'll retire the car. I mean, as a Formula One driver doing that, knowing what's about to happen, you must be just, oh God,
Heartbreaking.
oh,
Yeah.
geez.
More likely to crash again because you're probably just half-assing it out there.
I'd
Yeah.
love to see him just like drift round the corners though. He's like, well, I said the last lap, so I might as well just go ham on these tires. Yeah.
Imagine if he went out, if they just put him on brand new soft, he went out, set the fastest lap, served his penalty, and fecked off and didn't say anything.
Yeah. Pressing buttons in the steering wheel. Look at what this does. Oh, it does that. But yeah, Williams kind of knew they came into Spain like, yeah, it's not going to be a good one. Don't think they
Hmm.
expected it to be that bad. And it's every like was it during the Mercedes dominance there was Austria that was really 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 hot, and the
Mm.
Mercedes cars were like eighth and ninth and tenth and nowhere, and
Hmm.
everyone was a bit like, oh my god, like Mercedes were just like, yeah, we know, it's all right, we're going to win the rest of them. We might as well give you this one. So it's a shame. It's not nice to see, but it did
Uh,
ruin someone prediction for a Spanish top six.
yes, it certainly
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
uh, from a constructor's point of view, damage limitation was done by the fact that Kimi Antonelli didn't finish, and that Esteban Ocon was out of the running, but and Lance Stroll, but Nico Hülkenberg scoring a chunk of points jumps him comfortably ahead of Carlos Sainz, who's still on 12 points in 13th place. But Alex Albon remains in 8th place on 42, 6 points behind Kimi Antonelli on 48. So it could have been a lot worse for them championship wise. As it happens as well. Yeah, they're as we're saying, they're in that no man's land point already. They're fifth in the championship on 54 points, 90 behind Red Bull, which is not as much as it should have been. That's actually closer than I think Red Bull would want them to be, all things considering. But they are, they're comfortably. RB are on 28 points, and Isaac Hadjar is very good, but I don't think he's closing that gap on his own. So it could have been a lot worse for them this weekend. But yeah, bad weekend. They will hope that Canada is much better. Now that sort of does it for the Spanish Grand Prix. There was a lot in that. So Coops, what I'm going to ask you to do is dig out our predictions for this race, and I'm going to read out some of the comments that we got in YouTube while you're doing that. Thank you very, very much to everybody who's tuning in. We got a fair few viewers this time. It's the most viewers we've ever had on a live stream on YouTube. So thank you all very, very much for tuning in.
Thank you very much, lads.
Yeah, if you want to get involved with us on YouTube, we stream our podcast live now on YouTube. Head over to YouTube, Everything F1, all one word over there. Hit subscribe, hit the bell notification so you find out exactly when we're going live. We usually try and do the podcast recordings on Monday nights or Tuesday nights, depending on our availability. So hit the notification bell and you'll get involved there. So a couple of comments. Sam says, shout out to Hulk. How he didn't get driver of the day is a shambles. I think we're all in full agreement on that one.
Yep.
Sean says Max has Lando's number, but Piastri is more of an unknown for Max when it comes to passing. I think we'll definitely see that play out over the next while. Sean also says, so long as Ferrari bring a package to Monza as well as Silverstone. Sean's a friend of mine. We're going to Monza together, so he is as fingers crossy as me that Ferrari do something for there. And he also says it's pointless for Djokovic to ditch the Man because he's never getting in an acid. That's an interesting call. It's a very interesting call. He could have a full career in WEC, but the flip side of that is, as you said, Lance Stroll, the only way he's getting out of that car is if he's forced out through medical reasons. So the opportunity to drive the Formula One car, do a Colapinto, or Nick de Vries only had one drive and he got a full-time drive in Formula One for a while.
WEC can wait. WEC can wait.
WEC will be there, but it is Le Mans. So I wouldn't want to be in Felipe Djokovic's company. They are, first drive in Formula One versus the 24 hours of Le Mans. It's a tough one. So thank you for comments, Sean. Ian says, sorry I'm late. He was late to the stream. Thank you for joining us, Ian, as always. He says, I know it's not F1, but what did everyone think of the F2 sprint and main race? And actually, yes, let's have a quick one on this because, my God, what a weekend Formula 2 had. And I am super biased here. Alex Dodd, what a performance. 19th to 2nd in the sprint race after taking a raft of penalties. 13 places in penalties, 10 from his pile up in Monaco, and three more for hitting Victor Martins in practice, which I think was a little bit Martins' fault, but they really don't like each other. He recovers it 19th to 2nd. Very, very who was it as well? Villagomez went from 22nd to 3rd. They all pitted very, very late in the safety car for soft and made up like 15 places in the past 5 laps. And then the feature race as well was very, very impressive. Did anybody watch it? Am I the only one?
I watched the sprint, but I didn't watch the feature race, I must admit.
The feature was good too. Coops, were you watching Formula 2 this weekend?
No, I actually was working part of the weekend, so it was a bit of a strange one. So no. I actually had to have the Formula 1 was on in the background, so it wasn't just Formula 2. I didn't really watch.
You had a fair excuse there. As I say, I'm obviously a big Alex Dunn fan, and it's very rare that we get an Irish driver performing at any sort of top level in racing. We have the likes of Max Hardis competing in sports cars as well, but Alex Dunn is carrying the flag proudly for Ireland, and he would have got a podium in the feature race as well, only for a safety car with like 3 laps to go. Sebastian Montoya, I think his wheel went on wrong, and he just beached himself in the gravel, and they couldn't recover it quickly enough, which is a shame, because even with 1 lap of racing at the end, I think Vershoren and Alex Dunn would have got another podium, but incredible. Formula 2 is even if you're not an Alex Dunn fan, Formula 2 is incredible this year. It's a great championship. The racing is,
but I think those I don't know, it just shows the degradation, because there was only like 5-6 laps maybe at the end of the sprint race, and they just went through people. They were overtaken, like I think they went through the pack in about 3 laps.
Yeah, they did.
I think they overtook about 5 cars per lap. It was just ridiculous.
If you ever want to know what that felt like for them, go play the new F1 25, which I'll have a review of very soon. I've just tried to play through all the modes of it as we speak. It's very good. Hop into the F2 car, stick it on AI easy mode, start at the back of the grid, and have some fun. That's what it felt like for Alex Dunn and Richard Vershoren piling through. They must have had that must be the most fun.
Is Alex Dunn leading the championship, or is it
Yes,
he is.
87 points. He's 3 points clear, I believe, at which again when he should have scored
McLaren
no
Jr.
points.
McLaren Jr. as well.
When he should have been scoring 0 points in Spain to not only regain the lead of the championship, but to extend it is very, very impressive. So if you want to tip, stick a fiver on the Irishman. I promise it's coming. I called Gabby Bortoleto last year at about this time of the season. I called him winning that championship too. So I'm calling this one now. So Coops, with that prediction out of the way, can you remind us of our predictions for Spain and how wrong? Well, I know I was very wrong on one of them.
Okay,
Sadly.
so we'll do Amy first because she's not here. So her wild card was Alonso was getting P6. Third was Max. Second was Piastri. First was Norris with Paul Norris. So more or less all wrong, but we'll
Close
go
but
with
no
that.
cigar.
Yeah. So Sean, you went with Max's pole. Nah. You went with Lando win. You went with a Max second place, and you went with Piastri third.
Oof.
Damn.
I know Formula One.
Yeah, of course you do. Yes. He actually isn't even Irish. James, we went with Max on pole, Piastri first, Norris second, Max in third. So
I'll take that.
I went with a Leclerc pole, Piastri first, Norris second, George Russell third. Oh,
That's
and
not
it
a bad
was
show.
So you were the closest.
yes, I was. I actually ran up the stairs at the very end because I thought I have Leclerc in my predictions. I thought I put him third.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Didn't. In terms of wildcard, I forgot to say, James was said it was going to be a team accident. He touched on it earlier. He was
So close.
He was a ball hair, as we say up here in Scotland, away from it. Didn't quite happen. Sean, to just put the cherry on top of how badly wrong he was, he said that the Spanish drivers were going to get in the top 6.
Fernando got points though.
Well,
So Maz.
Where was Carlos Sainz? Because I forgot he was in the race.
I forgot he was in the race as well. I don't know.
13th, I think he came.
13th with like 8 different front wings on his car, something like that. No, 14th.
Oh,
14th.
even worse.
14th.
Even better,
yeah. Yeah.
Your predictions should have been 2 Spanish drivers are going to start the race.
We're good at this, aren't we? Maybe we'll have a better run of it for Canada, which of course is the next race. Now we have finished the triple header. There's no Formula One this weekend, but it'll be back the following weekend for the Canadian Grand Prix. So we'll give you the times of that now. We'll do our preview podcast next weekend. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to get that one. And we'll do all of our predictions then. But get this one in your diaries now. So Friday the 13th of June. We have practice 1 at 6:30. These are UK Ireland times. Practice 1 at 6:30. Practice 2 at 10 p.m. Practice 3 then will be on Saturday the 14th of June at 5:30 p.m. and qualifying is at 9 p.m. And then the race on Sunday the 15th of June is at 7 p.m. So it's always the anomaly in the European season is Montreal.
That feels later than usual, though. Am I just being silly? Does that feel much later than usual?
It feels later, but no, I'm pretty sure the Montreal race is always at about 5 o'clock. Or maybe it is a bit later.
Because I know it's 5 hours back, isn't it? But that's not makes
5 hours back. Yeah. It starts at about 3 p.m. Local time. I'm trying to remember the time I was at it, but I had been in general admission. I got there at 6 in the morning with 2 cooler boxes full of cans. So I barely remember the race. I don't remember. I know I was there. I have video evidence that I was there.
You're like the Formula One version of people when I used to work security, people that got absolute rat-assed when they went to a music concert. Like, why are you doing that? You're here, you've paid 100 odd quid to go and see your favourite artist. You're drunk before you even open the doors, and you're getting carted out before the support act is finished.
In my defence, it was 35-degree heat, so it was very warm. So the beer went down a bit better. And it was my first ever Grand Prix. I had never been to one before, so I was just super excited. But that is the one that Patrick Stewart did a shoey at, and I remember that vividly.
Oh, nice. Nobody forgets Patrick Stewart did a shoey.
Pays do.
That's also the weekend that Lewis Hamilton got given the Senna helmet.
Oh yeah,
nice.
that
when he broke his 2017.
Yeah,
he got very, very emotional, didn't he? You could see it. You were like, ooh. But anyway,
I remember both of those points.
Patrick Stewart doing a show. I bet you they secretly changed it to Earl Grey tea.
Yeah, they possibly did.
Nice.
For anyone there, that's a Star Trek reference. If you
Yes,
got
it
it,
is.
good on you.
Well done. Well done. You're very old, Coops.
I'm also very geeky.
Yes, you are. We'll leave it on that one then before we get into just ripping the piss out of Coops a little bit longer. That'll do it for us. Thank you very, very much for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you are listening, but be sure especially to head over to our YouTube channel, Everything F1, all one word. Hit subscribe there because we will be giving away a Lego Speed Champion set when we hit 500 subscribers. Hit the notification bell over there, and you'll be able to get notified whenever we're going live each week, and you can get involved as so many people did today. Thank you all again very, very much for listening on YouTube. Thank you all for listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever else you're listening. We appreciate all of your listens as always. Check us out on all socials this week. You'll find us at JohnEF1 on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads, or at EF1 Official on TikTok. Check out our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles about all things motorsport. And as always, if you are looking for F1 or any motorsport merch, if you're going to any of the races, or like me, you just wanted some George Russell merch this weekend, head over to theraceworks.com and use our code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site-wide. Thank you, as always, to theraceworks.com for their continued support. That'll do it for us. Thank you very much. We'll be back next week with our preview of the Canadian Grand Prix. Bye now.
Bye.